The lead-up to World War I was deeply rooted in what historians call the Age of Empires and the dynamics of the long 19th century, from the end of the Napoleonic Wars in 1815 to the beginning of World War I in 1914. This era was characterized by unprecedented expansion, industrialization, and competition among the European powers as they carved up the globe in pursuit of economic resources and political dominance. By the late 19th century, most of Africa, Asia, and the Pacific were divided among European empires. Britain, the world's largest empire, controlled territories on every continent, often summarized by the phrase "the sun never sets" on the British Empire. France, too, maintained significant colonial holdings in Africa and Asia. Germany, a unified nation only since 1871, had entered the colonial race later, but pursued an ambitious imperial program, claiming parts of Africa and the Pacific. Other powers, including Russia, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, also vied for influence, while the Ottoman Empire struggled to maintain its territories in the face of growing nationalist movements. This scramble for empire, sometimes described as the new imperialism, was driven by a mixture of economic ambitions, national pride, and racial ideologies that justified dominance over other peoples. Colonies were seen not only as sources of raw materials and markets for manufactured goods, but as symbols of national power and prestige. Historian John Hobson observed in Imperialism: A Study, published in 1902, that imperialism is the endeavor of the great controllers of industry to broaden the channel for the flow of surplus wealth by seeking foreign markets. Such expansionism laid the groundwork for intense rivalries among the European powers. To protect and expand their empires, European nations invested heavily in their military forces, ushering in an age of massive militarization. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw European nations dramatically increase military spending and develop new technologies. Naval arms races, particularly between Britain and Germany, added tension to an already competitive atmosphere. Britain, long the world's foremost naval power, responded with the Dreadnought battleship in 1906, an advanced warship that set a new standard and prompted Germany to accelerate its own naval expansion. On land, standing armies swelled in size, and conscription became commonplace. By 1914, the military buildup was enormous. Germany had more than 4 million men in its army reserves. France, fearing a German invasion, mobilized over 3 million men. Russia's peacetime standing army numbered around 1.4 million soldiers, the largest in Europe. Militarization was reinforced by innovations in weapons technology, from rapid-fire machine guns to heavy artillery. These advancements created a volatile environment where the scale of military power and the speed with which it could be deployed meant that even a minor conflict could spiral out of control. Nationalism, initially a unifying force within countries, morphed into a potent form of hyper-nationalism by the early 20th century. This extreme patriotism combined with a deep suspicion or outright hostility toward other nations. In Germany, nationalism was fueled by a sense of historical destiny and racial superiority, exemplified by philosophers like Heinrich von Treitschke, who asserted, "The greatness of a people lies in its ability to wage war." France, still haunted by its defeat in the Franco-Prussian War of 1870 to 1871 and the loss of Alsace-Lorraine to Germany, fostered a nationalism based on reclaiming lost territories. In Russia, Pan-Slavic nationalism promoted solidarity with Slavic peoples in the Balkans, placing it at odds with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which controlled several Slavic territories. Meanwhile, Austria-Hungary faced rising nationalism among its ethnically diverse population, including Czechs, Poles, Serbs, and Hungarians, each group demanding greater autonomy or independence. This fervent nationalism also fueled public support for military expansion and imperialist policies, creating an environment where people expected and even welcomed the prospect of war as a means of proving their country's superiority. Historian Margaret Macmillan explains in The War That Ended Peace. By 1914, war was increasingly seen as a necessary means of preserving national honor and demonstrating strength. By 1914, Europe was a powder keg, primed to explode. The alliances that had formed between major powers, the Triple Entente of Britain, France, and Russia, and the Triple Alliance of Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy, created a precarious balance. Each nation knew that a conflict involving one power would likely draw in its allies, making any dispute potentially catastrophic. With vast empires, massive armies, advanced weapons, and nationalist fervor at a fever pitch, Europe was set for a conflict on an unprecedented scale. The early 20th century was marked by intensifying rivalries and alliances that transformed minor disputes into potential global conflicts. Nowhere was this volatility more evident than in the Balkans, a region that European powers dubbed the powder keg of Europe due to its deep-seated national and ethnic tensions. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand in 1914 was not the root cause of World War I, but rather a catalyst that ignited years of accumulating tensions and alliances across Europe. The Balkans had long been a region of contest between European empires. For centuries, the Ottoman Empire controlled much of the Balkans, but by the late 19th century, Ottoman influence was waning, leaving a vacuum that both Austria-Hungary and Russia sought to fill. Austria-Hungary, a diverse empire already dealing with ethnic unrest, wanted to prevent the rise of Slavic nationalism within its borders, especially among Serbs, Croats, and Bosnians, who were inspired by neighboring Serbia's quest for a greater Serbia that would unite all South Slavic peoples. Meanwhile, Russia saw itself as the protector of Slavic peoples and supported Serbian aspirations, putting it on a collision course with Austria-Hungary. This competition for influence in the Balkans created a fragile situation where even a minor conflict could escalate. In 1908, Austria-Hungary formally annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina, a region with a large Serb population, angering Serbia and Russia and deepening regional hostility. Historian Christopher Clark describes this period as a crisis waiting to happen, with Serbia becoming increasingly radicalized and nationalist. Various nationalist groups emerged, including Black Hand, a secret society dedicated to achieving a greater Serbia, often by violent means. In 1912 and 1913, the Balkan Wars erupted as several Balkan states, Serbia, Greece, Montenegro, and Bulgaria, fought against the Ottoman Empire to gain territory. These wars were victories for the Balkan League, but they left unresolved territorial disputes and fueled Serbian nationalism, heightening tensions with Austria-Hungary. By 1914, the Balkans were a hotbed of resentment, ethnic divides, and overlapping alliances. This volatile situation created an environment where a seemingly isolated act of violence could spark a larger conflict. On June 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, and his wife, Sophie, visited Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia. They were both assassinated by Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old Bosnian Serb nationalist and member of the Black Hand. Princip and other members of the Black Hand saw the assassination as a blow against Austria-Hungary's control of Slavic territories. The assassination set off a series of diplomatic and military responses. Although Princip acted independently, Austria-Hungary blamed Serbia, seeing the assassination as an opportunity to quash Serbian nationalism once and for all. Austria-Hungary, emboldened by Germany's promise of support, known as the blank check, issued an ultimatum to Serbia on July 23, 1914, with demands that were almost impossible to meet. Serbia's response to the ultimatum was conciliatory, but not enough to satisfy Austria-Hungary, which declared war on Serbia on July 28. This declaration triggered a chain reaction due to the complex web of alliances across Europe. Russia, as Serbia's ally, began to mobilize its forces against Austria-Hungary. Germany, allied with Austria-Hungary, then declared war on Russia. France, bound by its alliance with Russia, prepared to support its ally, leading Germany to declare war on France. In a bid to avoid a two-front war against France and Russia, Germany implemented the Schlieffen Plan, which called for a swift invasion of France through Belgium. However, Belgium's neutrality had been guaranteed by Britain, and when German forces invaded Belgium, Britain declared war on Germany on August 4, 1914. In the span of a few days, Europe was plunged into a full-scale war, drawing in all the major powers and their respective colonies. As historian Barbara Tuchman put it, the nations were caught in a trap, a web of their own making, and the assassination of Franz Ferdinand was merely the spark that set the whole world afire.